Hello everyone, I am Keith Morton. My wife Beth is here today. She's in the pink shirt. She and I together own and operate Morton Farms Incorporated in Faulkner, Mississippi. Faulkner is about 70 miles southeast of Memphis. I started farming with my father while I was in high school in 1987, and I just harvested my 30th crop. My wife and I have been farming together for the past 20 years. We used to grow mostly cotton, but since 2007, we've been mostly grain, soybeans, corn, and wheat. We currently farm about 1,000 acres, half owned and half rented. Many of our current farming methods were implemented after ideas that I got from attending this conference. My topic today is controlled traffic farming. I'm going to start with my current method of farming. And I will stay scripted because time is short and there's a lot of ground to cover, and I veer off course easily if I don't stick to my script. We've been mostly no-till since 2000, and today we are 100% no-till except in cases where we do precision drainage work. We grid sample on 2.5 acre grids every 3 years. We apply lime and P&K by variable rate. We also use a yield monitor data with replacement values for our non-sample years. So we do the crop replacement values. Over the years we've transitioned from 38-inch rows to 19, then to 30-inch rows. Now we're on 30-inch twin rows for corn and beans. Our wheat is drilled on 7.5-inch spacing. All of our equipment is John Deere, except for a 30-foot Great Plains grain drill, a 1,000 bushel Brent grain cart, and a 90-foot Best Way pull-type sprayer. On our sprayer, we utilize the swath control from our 2630 display. We currently use an 8245R tractor with ILS on a 120-inch wheel spacing, a 1790 30-foot 24-row platter with twin-row conversion by easy offset, and we use a 9660 combine with duals and auto steer. On this combine we added a Lankota auger extension. We use a 30-foot 630F header for soybeans and wheat, and a 20-foot 8-row 843 corn header for corn. A PTO ditcher is one of our most important tools on the farm for site-specific drainage. We've used auto steer since 2008. We use all John Deere precision equipment, a 6000 receiver, a 2630 display, and we use an SF3 signal. We also utilize row command, swath control, yield mapping, and overlap control. RTK is not available in my area through a dealer network, and having my own base is too expensive, so the SF3 is doing a good job of repeatability. I'm very pleased with it. We swap the precision equipment back and forth from the tractor to the combine as needed. We hire most of our spraying, fertilizer, and lime spreading, and then generally we run our applicators generally run John Deere equipment, which makes it easy to share AB lines. We do require all custom sprayers or spreaders to be on 120-inch spacing and 90-foot swath widths if at all possible. Lime trucks with floater tires are the exception. This all leads me to our topic, controlled traffic farming, which to me is planned, predetermined paths through the field. Why control traffic? You can see the tracks there. This slide should answer your question. This is how we evolved. I began looking into controlled traffic farming in the year 2000 when I was still growing cotton. After harvesting cotton plots with a plot picker, we were harvesting one row at a time. We noticed that every time a row was next to a wheel track, it yielded less than the rows that did not have wheel tracks. I began paying attention to our different equipment and how much of it did not match, which meant I had a lot more wheel paths running through the field than necessary. From that time forward, every time I needed to replace a piece of equipment, I started looking for something that would work width-wise and wheel spacing-wise. I continued to research the idea of controlled traffic from a compaction standpoint, or rather reducing compaction. I believe the best way to eliminate compaction is to avoid it in the first place. The Pioneer website, Pioneer Seed, has many useful research articles that can help you determine what benefits you can see by controlling or reducing compaction. Today, we've almost fully implemented a farm-wide controlled traffic system. Only our corn head does not match. I'm working to rectify that as soon as an affordable trade for a 12-row can be made. Most tractors are on 60-inch, 76-inch, or 80-inch centers. Most sprayers are on 120-inch centers. Most combines and sprayers cannot physically be moved in, so the most logical thing to do is to space the tractor tread out to the same width as the other equipment. You can see here how the tractors and the combines don't match, don't fit, and then you have the platter units and steel wheels will be running on top of the rows. What we're trying to do is standardize everything so it will all run on basically one set of tracks. At the time we began in 2000, we had an 8200 John Deere tractor, mechanical front end. It was on 76-inch centers. There was an aftermarket spacer kit available, but it would void the tractor warranty. And at the time we had a 1300 series front axle. That axle was not built to handle the strain of spacers. So for the next 5 years I did the best I could to avoid compaction while also moving to no-till production. This meant that I tried to avoid driving through the field when it was wet or even when it was damp. Of course, this is good advice whether you control traffic or not. In the spring of 2006, I was able to purchase a John Deere 8410T tractor with 18-inch tracks on 120-inch centers. At the time, we used 20-foot planting and harvesting equipment and a 60-foot sprayer. This worked very well except when I hired custom applications, because at the time I was not using auto steer and neither were my applicators. Also, as time moved on and the farm added acres, it was necessary for me to move to a wider planter for timeliness of planting. I started planting on a 12-row planter using 30-inch rows. During this transition is when I added auto steer. Also, at this time, my custom applicator started using 90-foot sprayers with wheels on 120-inch spacing. In 2013, we finally traded to a larger combine and got a 30-foot header. In 2014, we traded the 8410T for an 8310 RT, also with 18-inch tracks and 120-inch centers. At the same time, we bought a 30-foot 1790 planter equipped to plant 30-inch twin rows. Also at this time, we went to a 1,000-bushel grain cart and a 30-foot grain drill. In the spring of 2017, I started looking into trading tractors and found out that John Deere now makes their own spacer kit for wheeled tractors. And they will back their warranty if the John Deere kit is used. This kit is actually for 118-inch spacing, but it does work well. The kit only works on tractors with ILS or 1500 mechanical front ends. This allowed me to trade to a much newer tractor with less horsepower and the ILS, and I'm maintaining the benefits of controlled traffic. This also eliminates berming on the end with 30-foot equipment, which is the scarring that a track tractor sometimes leaves when you turn. The next natural step would be to go to a 40-foot planter and header and start using 120-foot sprayers or spreaders. This is our goal. We want the sprayer to be able to cover all 3 planter passes using the same tracks that the planter would have used right here in the center. So now we have moved from a track tractor to a wheeled tractor. This is the wheeled tractor when they were spacing it out in the shop. That's the front spacers. And on the rear, we had to swap the rear wheels from one side to the other in order for them to be dished out properly to meet that 118-inch spacing. We're operating on singles. So I'll do a comparison of tracks versus wheels, advantages and disadvantages. For the track, 18-inch tracks have the same area of ground contact as a rear dual wheel modified mechanical front wheel drive tractor. You do not have duals, so you have no pinch rows. 120-inch spacing is easily achieved. You have plenty of room for tanks without obstructing visibility. And so right there where that red circle is, that's where the tanks would go on these tractors. And depending on what brand of tank you can get up to 1,000-gallon capacity. The tank will fit on both sides of the tractor underneath the cab. Alright, the other advantages is that it can handle wide, heavy equipment very well, and you have no flats. There are disadvantages. You have a high purchase price. It's harder to trade these tractors. There's a lower demand for trade-ins, lower resale or lower trade-in value. They do cause berming or soil disturbance when you're turning tight. Wider equipment does help with that, because the wider your equipment is, the broader your turn is, the less scarring you have. They ride a little rougher sometimes, especially the older pre-RT models. The RTs have an air suspension, so they do ride much better. For the wheel tractor, the advantages is that the spacers are now available for ILS or 1500 front axles that will allow for a full tractor warranty. And that's, again, with John Deere spacers only. The ILS is very smooth riding at all times. I have not driven one with the 1500 axle. There's no berming or soil disturbance when you turn. These tractors have a higher demand, therefore your resale and trade-in values are better. My current 8245R tractor handles a 30-foot 1790 platter, 30-foot grain drill, and a 1,000-bushel grain cart very well. The disadvantages to a wheel is the spacers must be purchased separately, and they cost around $3,500. You have to clear your warranty through your dealer or regional manager. There are weight and tank restrictions on these tractors, and there is less flotation. I did find out from a phone call yesterday that the duals are not permissible on this tractor. The reason I was trying to find out is we wanted to know if you could put duals on 180-inch spacing like you do with the combines, but they will not cover that under warranty. You get a little less traction with a wheel tractor, but that's not an issue if you're no-tilling, which we are. Benefits of controlled traffic. You're limiting or controlling your compaction to certain predicted zones. This allows for you to travel on firm wheel tracks every time, so those firm tracks may allow for earlier entry into the field if conditions have been wet. If any compaction is caused, it can be ripped out at less cost due to only having to zone till near the tracks. Over time, your field operations become more accurate, more timely, and more predictable. Overall yield will increase over time and become more consistent. Rotational crops will not disturb other crops. And you can see it works both flat or bedded. And this is 60-inch beds. This with one of our older platters. This platter was actually modified. We had 26-inch rows on top of the bed and a 34-inch wheel track middle. But we've tried bedding. We are not doing it currently. We may go back and try it again one day, but we prefer the flat planting. Another advantage is it helps you to sustain your long-term no-till benefits. You may require having to trade some equipment. That's some of your challenges. You may need to upgrade your precision equipment for accuracy and repeatability. Nothing is standardized, and I point this out to equipment manufacturers. I hope they will take note and start working on this. Controlled traffic farming will take cooperation from individual operators and custom applicators. Exceptions can be made if conditions allow, such as lime trucks with flotation tires, or if you're capturing extra revenue by baling wheat straw in the summer when the ground conditions are dry enough. Controlling traffic takes discipline. Tillage can be performed with the correct size tillage tools, such as using a 33-foot disc or a field cultivator for your 30-foot planting swath. That way you can keep your swath widths at 30 feet and provide for adequate overlap of the tillage tool. Here's how to begin based on my recommendations from what I've seen in my experience. Take time to consider each pass across the field. Establish a master A-B line for the main rows of each field. If your field shape allows for you to, then you need to set A-B lines for your end rows also. Name your lines so you know where they belong. Use an A+ heading instead of auto B. That's your method of selecting your A-B lines. Using auto B or an A+ B usually requires exporting and then importing your guidance line through a computer using John Deere Apex or SMS. Very few of us have a computer available when you're on the turn row and you need to transport these lines from one machine to the other. So the reason I prefer A+ heading is that you can select your heading numerically by degrees or tenths of degrees based on a compass. This may take a little trial and error. By having a field name and an actual number heading for your A-B line, you can simply type it into another John Deere display and your custom operator will have the same guidance line as you. I store mine on my iPhone, so my lines are always available for easy transfer. Share your A-B lines with all equipment, especially if you use different receivers or displays for each piece of equipment. And share these lines with your custom applicators. Use an even row platter, like a 24 row instead of a 23 row, or a 32 row instead of a 31 row. By using an even row platter, it keeps your swath width the same when you go from corn to soybeans, like if you're planting 30-inch corn and 15-inch beans. When you use an odd row platter, your swath width is reduced by 15 inches. So your second pass misses your track by 30 inches, your third pass misses by 45, and so your wheels get further off track as you continue across the field. If you have an even row platter, your tracks will always remain in the exact same location. Easy offset makes a three-way hitch for the even row platters. That eases the burden of going from 30-inch corn to 15-inch beans, and it eliminates the need to jack up the platter, making it much safer and faster. If you're interested in something like this, you can go to the letter E, the letter Z, offset.com, easioffset.com for more information on the hitch and the twin row platter conversions. Try to match your unload auger length on your combine to unload into the center of the grain cart while the grain cart travels in your previous combine tracks. I used a Lancota extension for mine, and I'm using a 30-foot header. It delivers it directly to the center of the grain cart. If you have a 40-foot header, you probably can't get your auger long enough. Now, I think this picture came from Australia. I lifted this off the internet, but they use a conveyor to catch from the auger going into the grain cart. So there are ways of making this happen. That way his tractor can travel his previous tracks. So depending on the width of your header, you may have to look into that. Consider your existing equipment and see if any of it can be paired to match, or if anything needs to be traded soon. If so, consider what width will be your best width for your near future standard. For example, you can use 20-foot and 30-foot equipment as long as you try to keep your wheel tracks in the middles and off the rows. Be practical. It doesn't have to be done overnight, and don't spend yourself broke trying to match all this equipment. The best thing to do is always pretend that there's a growing crop in the field. If you would not purposely run over a row of crop, then don't drive on top of what I call an existing row. Here's an example. We just harvested this, but these are my soybean rows. And as far as I'm concerned, that's still a growing crop. Same is true here. We're on the end rows, but we're traveling the combine tracks. The combine, when it harvested across the ends, we're still sitting on the same set of tracks. Don't make shortcuts across the field. From your combine with your grain cart, don't just head out across the field. Try to follow your lines all the way to the end of the field before you travel to the truck. Just don't make any random tracks through the field if you can avoid it. If you do feel the need to spray or harvest at an angle to your planter, especially if you're on 15-inch row spacing, then that's fine. Just standardize those tracks. Make an AB line for them and make sure those wheels stay in those tracks. Not just for that season, but every time you perform that field operation. It's easier if you picture 30-inch rows. Consider soil dampness as it pertains to compaction or rutting. Spread your residue evenly for the full width of the header. Of course, that's good advice for no-tilling, but it certainly does pay off. You do not have to start over every time you change equipment. As long as you have made an effort to keep your wheel tracks in the middles, then even if you go from an 8-row planter to a 12-row or even a 16-row, as long as you maintain your AB lines properly, your wheels will always be in the same middles. Since I farm soybeans, corn, and wheat, I can't speak much for cotton or rice, but I do believe that it can be done with some thought or planning. Wheat is drilled on my farm, but it's not a problem since our tracks are maintained. 30-inch cotton should not be a problem, but 38 and 40-inch cotton may require more thought. For rice, I believe it would work, especially if you have straight levees or row rice. Use your precision equipment to your advantage. I know terraced fields or fields with lots of curves are a challenge, and this may not fit everyone. Just do what you can, where you can, when you can. Make plans before you go to the field, and if something doesn't work out, start again next year. What does this mean in dollars? According to Pioneer on this slide, they were testing the yield on the two outside wings of the planter versus the center section of the planter. The compaction caused by the weight of the tractor and the planter was creating a pinch row effect, which was showing that the two wing sections actually yielded 11.3 bushels an acre more than the center section of that planter. That's an 11.3 bushel advantage for 2/3 of the planter width, which is 7.5 bushels overall yielded where there are no wheel tracks. The 7.5 bushels times $3.50 corn is $26.25 an acre. So that gives you something to think about. This shows the center section versus the two outside sections, 11.3. Here's an example of what not to do. Look at all the tracks and lines running across the field. That's a mess to me. According to some research that I found, 80% of all compaction is caused in the first pass of each track across the field. So the fewer number of passes, the better. That's why it's thoughtfully planned trips across the field are so important. I want to acknowledge my wife Beth for her help and her support and her guidance on our farm, and for her help with this presentation. I want to thank Andy Taylor for helping me put this together also. He helped me with the computer part of this PowerPoint. But I really want to thank Dr. Normie Buring. He invited me here today to speak, and I want to congratulate him on retiring coming up in April, 45 years of serving North Mississippi farmers. Let's give him a round of applause. There are so many things that I haven't told you. The details can get very bogged down, but I will be glad to share some links and information that I have gathered over the years on some of the stuff you've seen here today. My email is in the booklet, so you feel free to email me if you want some of those links, and I will reply back to you. So thank you very much. Are there any questions?
Okay, anybody got any questions for Keith first?
Have you seen your yields going up because of this plant tracking?
I cannot specifically say it was due to this, but yes, our yields have been going up at a considerable pace over the past 5 years. And I can't contribute. I haven't scientifically done anything to measure this, but I do feel good about what we're doing.
On your soybeans, you don't plant them 7.5 like you plant your wheat. You just found out that 30-inch twin row is just as good as.
Well, let me see. I can't get the accuracy of the seed drop with the grain drill, for one thing. If I had a precision grain drill, I might consider planting beans on 7.5-inch rows, but my seed cost, I could not get them dialed in on this drill, so we like using a vacuum planter for corn and soybeans. So.
Anybody else got a question for Keith?
Thank you so much for your time today.
Anybody got any questions for my presentation? I'll be glad to entertain them.